Can you believe we're already to week 16 of the fantasy season? Look, as the season winds down, we're on our way to seeing some records set by running backs. Look, just last week, Woody Marks leaving the game early with injury for the 13th straight time. Ashton Genty on his way to set the record of most times being hit behind the line of scrimmage. And the Seattle backfield looks like they're going to go undefeated this season as far as the most frustrating backfield in the NFL.
Those are terrible records.
Well, I didn't say they were good. Well, let's see what happens in Week 16. We want to figure out who's going to be good for your fantasy playoffs. Everything could be on the line for you this week, so let's get it right with RB Starts It. Before we break down all the matchups for Week 16, let's get this out of the way. There are still some must-start RBs. Don't question it. If you have these guys, put them in your lineup right now. It's Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, James Cook, and Josh Jacobs. Also, no need to wait to hit that subscribe button. If you haven't done it yet, I know a lot of you have. We appreciate every single one of our subs. If you haven't, go ahead and take a second because we're trying to get to 100K before the year's over. Not much time left. Everyone helps. This week, we'll kick off with the Rams at the Seahawks. It's a big one on Thursday night. And so before we address that Seattle backfield, which won't take too long, let's talk about the Rams backfield, which has probably been the most, well, I guess pleasant surprise because we got two fantasy viable running backs here. Is this going to continue? We can just both put Kyren and Corum in our lineup and be happy?
Well, it's a pleasant surprise if you have Blake Corum. It's an unpleasant surprise if you've got Kyren. Of course, you're not liking this at all. This is pretty much a 50-50 split. Like, these guys are alternating drives now. I know it probably feels like these guys should be in the same tier, but I don't know. Maybe it's just my, the way I perceive them. I still am going to give Kyren the slight edge here. This is not a great matchup on the road against Seattle. We know a tough run defense here. But look, Kyren did have 90 yards and a touchdown last time, but that was when he was still mostly the workhorse. I'm going to say Kyren's solid, but like lower end solid. And I'm going to say Corum, a high end flex. Again, these guys are a lot closer than, we wish they were probably.
Yeah, the good news for Kyren owners is he is still doing just fine while Corum is as well. I am going to put him in the same tier. I think they could both be solid this week, which might be a little risky because, again, that Seattle run defense is really good. But this Rams offense is also really good. They both have touchdown upside every week. Corum only had 4 fewer carries last week. Again, I'm going to prefer Blake Corum to pretty much every flex option we're going to mention, so why not put him here? And then on the other side of the coin, it's Kenneth Walker / Zach Charbonnet. I mean, they are at home, but they get the Rams.
It doesn't matter. They were at home last week against the Colts and Phillip Rivers. What did these guys do? Absolutely nothing. No chance I could put these guys in my lineup.
No chance. And again, it's dead weight at this point. There's really no reason to roster either. Now, guys, don't forget, with college season over, we're going to have 2 Saturday games this week. So make sure you get your lineup set. At least you have players in these games. Let's start off with the first one. It's going to be the Eagles at the Commanders. We still got to talk Saquon Barkley. I mean, he's starting to look like himself. Not like last year's version of himself, though. But against this Commanders defense, seems like a pretty easy start.
Yeah, I doubt anybody's benching Saquon this week, but I don't want to go overboard here. Like, I'm going to say very high-end solid, borderline strong. I don't think I can quite put him strong just because, like, last week, he looked, he's still like the explosive runs, the efficiency still hasn't been there. He's got touchdown upside, though, and it is the Commanders, so it's got to at least be very, very solid this week.
Well, I think finally we can rest easy if you got Saquon Barkley. Just start him and put him in the strong tier because, look, Washington just gave up a big game to Tyrone Tracy. And this is the Eagles. They're finally back to looking like themselves after a little slump there. Yeah, they're just going to give the ball to Barkley. He's going to feast. I got no concerns here. They don't necessarily give up a ton of yardage to running backs, but they give up huge fantasy games to running backs in all sorts of ways. And this team is packing it in for the season. So if you got Barkley, just start him. No, actually, one guy who hasn't packed it in yet, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, just when you thought you could forget about him, he reemerged, almost 100 yards, and had a touchdown last week, but that was the Giants. And then there's also the possibility that Chris Rodriguez does come back. So is this just going to be a big old mess again?
Well, if Chris Rodriguez comes back, probably going to be a big old mess. Although I'd have to assume that Chris Rodriguez will slot back in as the lead back here for whatever that's worth. But this is like almost a polar opposite of the matchup they had last week. I mean, the Eagles aren't like the best run defense, but they're still, a top 10 unit against the run here. You can't feel very good about these guys. I'll just say flexes. I will say if Chris Rodriguez is out, maybe I could slot Bill in as a strong flex, but only if Rodriguez is out.
Yeah, it's still a strong run unit even with Jalen Carter out. This game could and really should get out of hand. I don't know if Philly's going to do what they were doing last year and stomp all over these weaker teams. But at the very least, I don't feel like game script will be at any point in favor of Washington. So if both guys are back, they're barely flexible. I will feel a little bit better about Bill if C-Rod is completely out, but still just a flex. And on Saturday night, we're going to have the Packers at the Bears. Another rematch from just a couple of weeks ago. Josh Jacobs has proven himself, as if you had any doubts. Injury, no injury. If he plays, you play him, okay? Now the Bears, these two running backs have been both fantasy relevant, but is Swift pulling away after last week, or is this just how last week happened to go?
I mean, he pulled away a little bit, but this wasn't like, what we saw with, like, say, Tyron Tracy or Devin Singletary, guys like that. He pulled away a little bit, but Monangai was still fairly involved. But this is not a good matchup here against the Packers. But that being said, this run game has been so good, I don't even know if it matters here. I'm going to say DeAndre Swift solid. Then I'll say Monangai. I'm going to say a risky flex. Like, he feels like he's at the point now where if he doesn't score, you're going to regret starting him.
Agree, Monangai. Kind of entering Kareem Hunt territory where it's like touchdown or nothing, which he still could score. The Bears do want to run the ball, but remember when they played the Pack just a couple weeks ago, like Swift only had 63 rushing yards, didn't score. But Micah Parsons is out. Obviously that makes a difference here with this defense, and they are at home, but still, I can put Swift as like a low-end solid and Monangai just a flex. Now we're going to get to the Sunday slate. First, before you set your fantasy lineups, have you tried Underdog yet? Because there's still time left in the football season. You can get a gimme pick just for signing up as a new customer on Underdog. If you use code ENDGAME at checkout, you'll get a free pick plus up to $1,000 of a deposit match. That's bonus funds in your account, and then you play $5 towards any pick. You get another $100 of bonus funds in your account. It's a good time still to try Underdog, and with the holiday season here, those promos and those profit boosts are just going to continue to roll in. So try Underdog and make sure you use code ENDGAME at checkout. All right, for the Sunday slate, let's kick it off with the Chargers at the Cowboys. These teams seem to be going in opposite directions. The Chargers now heading towards the playoffs, and the Cowboys are pretty much out of it after last week. So I wonder if that makes a difference here. Let's talk Marion Hampton, Kamani Vidal. We're still seeing kind of a split. Do you feel like that changes at all this week with Hampton another week removed from his injury?
I don't. Why? I thought last week we'd start to see Hampton pull away more, and we didn't. This looks like this is just what the Chargers have settled into, and this is something we were a little bit worried about. People were trying to like buy low on Hampton or stash Hampton. It's like, are we sure he's coming back to a workhorse role? I'm not so sure here. Not to mention the Cowboys, you look at it since they traded for Quinnen Williams, they're only allowing 3.97 yards per carry. I will say, though, speaking of Quinnen Williams, he left that game with a concussion, so he may miss this week. Of course, with concussions, we never know. He either clears the protocol or he doesn't. If he misses, that will help. But, man, this is not the Cowboys' run defense we saw for most of the season. It looks like a frustrating split here. I'm just going to say both guys strong flexes.
We saw Hampton only get 3 more carries than Vidal, but he was much more effective than Vidal in that role. I don't know, this Cowboys defense is better against the run, but they're not going to shut down this offense. I still think we see plenty of Hampton. I'm going to put him and sneak him into the low end of the solid tier because, again, I prefer him over all those flex options. And Vidal, he's just a flex. And all Javonte Williams owners were panicked for about a quarter. But then he came back in the third quarter and he was fine. In fact, against a pretty tough Minnesota defense, even with injury, even missing part of that game, still went for 91 yards and a touchdown. So, he just feels like the ultimate kind of set and forget high-end RB2. Does this matchup sway you off of that position, though?
No, I mean, it's not a great spot here. Chargers, second fewest fantasy points to running backs over the last 4 games. But like you said, you got Javonte Williams. You just put him in the running back slot. Like he's as close to set and forget as it gets, right? You just put him in there, you never even think about it. This guy's solid every week pretty much.
Yeah, he's healthy. He's out there. You know what? Matchup almost doesn't matter. So even if this isn't his best game, he is totally fine.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start, sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
Right now we got the Vikings at the Giants. Start with that Vikings backfield. Still got 2 guys to consider here. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason. Now, I don't think this is a backfield you really want a part of for the fantasy playoffs necessarily, but they just so happen to get the worst run defense in the NFL. So, what do you say?
Yeah, you still can't feel great here. I mean, look, J.J. McCarthy at least has looked serviceable the last 2 weeks, but it hasn't resulted in, great offensive yardage here. It feels like it feels weird. Like you look at the score and it's kind of like it doesn't even seem like the Vikings could have scored as many points as they did. It doesn't feel like they do anything all game and somehow they have these touchdowns. I don't know, but Aaron Jones, I'm going to say a strong flex because it is the Giants. He's at least looked good this year on his limited touches. It's just, what is the upside here even against the Giants? Then Jordan Mason, I'm going to say a risky flex. This guy only got 10 touches last week, and they were winning pretty much the entire game. There's just not enough here even against the Giants to feel that good.
I'm going to read into this matchup and think this might be kind of a sneaky high-scoring game. I mean, obviously, you look at these teams and their records. You're like, no, this is not exactly where I want to invest for playoff time. But think about this. Pace of play matters. The Giants run the second most plays per game, right? They're giving up a lot of points on defense, especially to the run game. Again, not just the worst run defense. They're getting worse as the season goes on, which is why they fired their defensive coordinator a couple of weeks ago. Over the last 8 weeks, they're allowing 6.5 yards per carry to running backs. That's pretty absurd. So I'm going to put Aaron Jones in the solid tier since he's still kind of the lead guy here, and he does catch passes where Mason doesn't. I think Mason is flex worthy here in this matchup because it's the Giants. Then for the G-men, well, maybe we have our answer. Who's the lead here? Tyron Tracy, clearly the 1A. Maybe just the one here. Devin Singletary only had 5 carries last week. Are we going to get tricked here, though?
I mean, we always could, but you can't start Devin Singletary after what we saw last week. No chance. I'm going to say Tracy, solid this week, but I can't say I love it. That was the Commanders. This is the Vikings, but the Vikings are only kind of like middle of the pack versus the run. This isn't a shutdown run defense. If he's going to get this many touches, catch passes, he should be just fine this week.
Yeah, I agree. Tracy proved himself. This is kind of what I expected from Tracy most of the season, to be honest. It's really frustrating that we had those couple of weeks where they were giving the ball to Singletary so much. I'm not sure why. But at this point, yeah, I think you can trust Tracy as a low-end RB2, granted. Singletary, no way. Bengals taking on the Dolphins this week. I mean, even if it wasn't the Cincinnati defense, Devon Achane is a set and forget, no doubt. What about Chase Brown? Because, I mean, he's still the lead back here, but for some reason we saw Samaje Perine actually get more carries than Chase Brown last week. My question is why?
I have no idea. Why? What's going on in Cincinnati? Who knows what's going on over there? But I still feel really good about Chase Brown. I'll say the Dolphins have been much, much, much better versus the run lately, but what we have seen and what we saw there on Monday night is they still give up a lot of receptions and receiving yards to running back. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell had a ton of receptions and receiving yards, and that's where Chase Brown's really been making his value has been coming from. So I think we see it again this week. Can't go crazy here. This isn't the Dolphins, run defense we saw earlier in the year, and we do see way more Perine than we should, but I'm still going to say solid for Chase Brown.
Yeah, more of a high floor play, agreed. Dolphins' run defense has been legit, and they are intentionally slowing games down, which is how they've been able to win. They actually run the fewest plays per game over the last 2 months since Tyreek Hill was out. Mike McDaniel, give him props for basically reinventing himself in this offense. It's probably not going to be a super high scoring game. Chase Brown, though, high floor for his receiving work. And apparently P. Ryan has some sort of an ankle issue. We'll see what happens there. But if he's out, that gives him a boost as well. In Week 16, the Panthers are going to host the Bucs. So let's talk Bucky. I know a lot of people were disappointed after last week. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but you've got to be concerned about the fact that he's getting pulled at the goal line, and that might continue.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that good last week. I mean, anytime a guy goes under 10 PPR points, especially your workhorse running back, you're not feeling too good. But this is the Panthers. This is a great spot. I mean, they've allowed, I think, the 5th most fantasy points to running backs over the last month. But you do have to be concerned that we saw Sean Tucker get, goal line carries. Bucky has not been good in the red zone this year. But still, are you really going to bench Bucky Irving against the Panthers? I'm not. I'm still going to say a very solid start.
Yeah, I think he does have to be at least a solid start, still getting the vast majority of the carries and getting some targets. So that's reassuring. I mean, I would hate to see him do the work and then have Sean Tucker or Rashad White or somebody get a 2-yard touchdown. I mean, it could happen to any running back, right? But that said, let's go Bucky, kind of that mid to low end RB2. Should be fine this week because it's the Panthers. And one of the big questions heading into last week was, what was this Carolina backfield going to look like? We got our answer pretty clearly. It's still Rico Dowdle as the lead. Chuba Hubbard took a backseat. So how do you treat them this week against Tampa?
Yeah, you got to feel good about Rico now. Hopefully, if you had Rico, started Rico, you're feeling pretty good. Bucs have not been nearly as good versus the run lately. It's not a smash spot, but it's not like a terrible spot. It's a fine spot. So I'm going to say Rico. I'm going to slot him in there with those solid guys. Then Chuba, I will say a flex. I mean, there are worse options this week, and he still does catch passes, but very limited upside here.
Yeah, I mean, Chuba is feeling more like a handcuff now, but again, I guess he is better than some other guys that we're not going to say to flex. Rico Dowdle, he's got to be solid because getting more of the carries, and unlike Bucky Irving, he doesn't get pulled at the goal line, which is why he scored last week. Jets at the Saints. We've got a couple of backfields here that are just a big old mess. Let's start with the Jets because, I mean, you figure, okay, Breece Hall. We had some concerns last week because of the knee he played. But now do we have another concern? Because Isaiah Davis suddenly got 9 carries and actually looked a lot better than Breece Hall, who didn't even average 2 yards per carry.
Yeah, you got to be very concerned if you got Breece Hall. I mean, if you're still alive with Breece Hall, I hope he's not in your starting lineups at this point. Let's be real here. Like, if you survived last week with Breece Hall, it would be very hard to put him out there again. I can't go outright sit because there are just some, terrible running backs that I don't even want to consider this week, but I almost do want to say sit here. I'm just going to say risky flex.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder if it was the knee that bothered him last week, but you also got to wonder how many touches is he going to get going forward as the season ends. Only because it's the Saints, I think we'll keep him in flex territory. And for New Orleans, all right, well, just when you thought Devin Neal was going to be kind of a solid option for you, he left with injury. Alvin Kamara is still out there somewhere, maybe potentially lurking to come back. Who's going to be running back for the Saints this week?
Yeah, this is frustrating because, man, I was very high on Neal and Woody Marks last week, and they came through, they both scored, but it's like, what could have been for these guys? And Neal was poised to honestly be a good, solid RB2 rest of the season because the Saints have a great schedule. Who knows what's going to happen now this week? I'll say if Kamara somehow does return, I think he's got to be solid. It's the Jets. I mean, Bashal Tutin scored. Travis Etienne had 10 touchdowns in this game. It was ridiculous. You get a touchdown, you get a touchdown. Come on, it's the Jets. They just fired their defensive coordinator. It's an absolute mess here. Then I will say if Kamara is out and Neal does end up playing, put him in solid for all the same reasons. And if somehow both these guys are out and it's Audric Estime who seems like the next man up, I can only go flex here, even in a good matchup.
This is why you hate when two awful teams face each other late in the season, because you really just don't want to start the players out there, but they're going against bad teams. It's you got to at least think about it. I'll just make this easy. If there's one of these guys who is healthy when the other isn't, meaning Neal plays and Kamara's still out, I could flex him. If Kamara somehow plays but Neal is out, okay, I could flex him. And if both are out and I'm desperate, I guess I could flex Audric Estimate, but I really don't want to. Bills at the Browns. You definitely want to start James Cook. It does not matter who they play, where, or when. It doesn't matter the weather either. Now, it does seem to matter for Quinshon Judkins. I mean, this guy's been super frustrating lately. This should have been a smash game for him in Week 15, and it wasn't. Does he smash against the Bills like Travion Henderson did?
No. Man, this is the call I probably regretted the most of the entire Week 15 was being all in on Quinshon Judkins. I mean, I had like nightmares of, every time I said Judkins over Travion Henderson or something, because this guy's just been terrible. 1.9 and 1.8 yards per carry the last 2 games. They're down like 3 starting O-linemen. The offense can't do anything. They're going to be playing from behind here. I'm just going to say a flex.
You got to wonder if Coach Kevin Stefanski is going to make it to the end of the season. But look, I'm going to be a little more optimistic here. This Bills run defense has proven it's still, susceptible to the big run, the big play, and Judkins is still getting all the run. This could be a sneaky bounce back for the Browns, who looked horrible last week, and maybe a letdown for the Bills after their huge win against New England. That's a lot of maybes, but still, I think Judkins is, for me, someone who is a little bit more than a flex. The Chiefs taking on the Titans this week. You thought this would be a colossal mismatch early in the season, before the season. It doesn't feel that way anymore. We know the news with the Chiefs. Mahomes is out. They are not playoff bound. So, for some reason, does that make you feel any better about Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco? Maybe they'll have to run the ball more?
Nah, this isn't even a good matchup. I've been saying for weeks, like, Titans not a good matchup for running backs. Jeffrey Simmons in the middle just shutting down the run here. And now Gardner Minshew. No, I want no part of this.
Nor should you. Jeffrey Simmons shutting down the run and catching touchdowns. But no, this is a good excuse to just be completely out on the Chiefs running game if you weren't already. We can't be out on the Titans run game, though. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, when you really least needed him because you probably already dropped him, Tony Pollard has decided to come on at, I guess, the best time possible. Is this too little too late? Are you keeping the faith in Tony?
Well, I mean, if you got Tony Pollard, like maybe you just had him on your bench, or maybe you scooped him up off the waiver wire just to see what happened. It's definitely not too late. It's perfect timing here. But for everybody who drafted him, it's probably too little too late. Look, 2 straight 100-yard games, 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. This is not a great spot. Like, yeah, the Chiefs' offense is going to be bad, but the defense is still really good here, especially against the run. But he's been so good. Let's find out. I'm going to say risky solid. Can't do it with Tyjae Spears, so.
Nah, Spears not getting enough run. I mean, why not? Again, the way he's been running, and this feels like a game, I'd be very curious to see how the Chiefs respond. Is this going to be a letdown for them? They know they got nothing to play for. They're not used to that. Are they going to rest some guys? I mean, I wonder. But like Pollard, I think, has got to at least be a solid option based on how he's run, even against a good run defense like the Browns. Now, Jaguars at the Broncos this week. I mean, these are 2 really good defenses, so let's see what happens here. Travis Etienne does not get the pleasure of facing the Jets. He's got to go on the road to Mile High Stadium. So, where does he slot in?
Yeah, don't expect a repeat of last week, but like, pretty much the entire season, Travis Etienne has mostly been good, mostly been solid. Yeah, this feels like a letdown if you're expecting last week's version of Travis Etienne, but he should still be fine here. I'm going to say solid. And then I'll say Bashal Tutin, just a risky flex here. He always could score, but if he doesn't, you're going to regret this.
Well, this is a big game for those teams, right? Fighting for seeding, and these are both contenders now in the AFC. I got to think with how good that Broncos pass defense is, they're going to probably rely on Etienne in the run game a little bit more. But that said, it's going to be a capped ceiling here. So let's just put him as solid. Tutin, I mean, he pretty much needs a touchdown to bail him out. Not going to count on that. And I don't feel like they're going to give him a whole lot of touches in this big matchup. So I'm just going to sit him. And one thing to watch out for is the status of RJ Harvey. He made it mostly through the game last week, but then late suffered some sort of a rib injury. Not sure exactly what the status is going to be. So if he's good to go, how do you feel about him?
I feel okay about him. I mean, thank goodness he came through with that late touchdown, because I was like, oh my gosh, he said yes to RJ Harvey so many times, and he's going to bust he's going to bust this week. but did come through with that late touchdown. But you know what's really aggravating? Like, where is the receiving? It's crazy to me. Like, when J.K. Dobbins was healthy and R.J. Harvey was barely on the field, this guy was catching like 3 or 4 passes a game. Now this guy's never off the field and never even gets a target. Like, what is going on here? I don't know, but this is a tough matchup against the Jags. Cannot feel great here. I mean, he still gets the volume. He still does have potential to score. I'm just going to say a strong flex, and if for some reason he misses, there is no way I'm taking a chance with like Jaleel McLaughlin or Tyler Beatty or whoever it is.
No, it's Harvey or bust in this backfield. I don't care who else they have. Look, if Harvey's good to go, I think he's got to be at least solid. I mean, he scores almost every week now, 4 TDs in the last 3 games. He had been scoring even back when J.K. Dobbins was healthy. I know he didn't catch any passes last week, but the week before he had 6. I think they're going to rely on him a little bit more here. So even in not an ideal matchup, he's got to at least be solid for me. The Falcons taking on the Cardinals this week. Bijan is still a set and forget. Don't worry about that. Tyler Algier, at this point, is there any reason to even think about him?
Nah, I mean, this is a good matchup, but this is too risky. We've seen him take a big, step back from Bijan here. He can always have those random games where he gets like 12 carries and a touchdown, but do you really want to risk it? No.
No, there haven't been a lot of good decisions by the coaching staff in Atlanta this year, but one of them has been to at least kind of taper on the work that Algier is getting. So no, he's not fantasy relevant. And as far as Arizona, is anybody at this point fantasy relevant? Bam Knight was the guy. He got hurt last week. Not sure if he's going to play. Demercado came back. He's a non-factor. Michael Carter's seemingly the lead back here. Is that enough?
Yeah, I feel good about Michael Carter. I mean, they're saying that what they said about Bam Knight was there wasn't like a serious fracture. He's not going to need surgery. Like, that's the good news. Now they're calling him week to week. He's not playing this week. Come on, he's not playing. There's no way. Michael Carter is going to be the guy. I will say, though, I said this last week about Bucky Irving. Like, the Falcons have low-key been tough against the run the last month or a little over a month here. So this is not a smash spot or anything. But Michael Carter catches passes. Even with Bam Knight playing, Demercado, whoever, he catches passes. He's going to be the guy. He's going to get all the touches. He's got touchdown upside. I can't go crazy here, but he's got to at least be a strong flex for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely has flex value. I did recommend him as a waiver wire pickup. If you need somebody, again, just because he's going to get most of the touches here, it still doesn't give him a very high ceiling. But like you said, he catches passes. Matchup's okay. So a flex, if you're struggling at RB, or you just need somebody who you know is going to get the touches. This week, the Raiders get to take on the Texans. And, this could have been a very interesting spot for a couple of rookie running backs to face off against each other. And now this just feels like a massive disappointment. Ashton Genty, what's the opposite of a league winner? I don't want to call him a loser, right? He's not, but this guy is just, it's not his own fault. Like, I feel bad for him, but it's just gotten worse as far as productivity as the playoffs have come for fantasy. Is there any way you can even think about starting him?
Well, I don't want to, but there are certainly worse options out there. I mean, like, come on, like, he still gets the touches. He still can catch passes. Honestly, I really hope it's Geno Smith at this point, because Kenny Pickett, I somehow made this offense significantly worse. But man, on the road against the Texans, they could easily get shut out again here. I can't say Genty an outright sit. I'm just going to say a flex.
I'm going to do it. There's no upside here. You can't even get to like 40 rushing yards, touchdowns. I have a feeling by the time we get to the weekend, the Raiders are probably going to have the lowest implied total of the entire season. I mean, they're barely going to be favored to even score a touchdown. So I'm going to say there's no upside here. You can't start Genty. It's kind of like Justin Jefferson. You hate to just say sit, but you should just sit him. And then the Texans backfield. All right, well, here we go. Woody Marks. Sure enough, left with injury. They're playing it off. They're saying he could have come back, but they chose not to bring him back, which is interesting. So what do you think that means for him and unknown Jawar Jordan, who had a 100-yard game?
Yeah, that was frustrating. Again, somebody who was very high on Woody Marks this week. See Jawar Jordan out there, ripping off long runs, getting all these carries and being like, oh, that could have been Woody Marks just going off this week. But Look, you know the risk here for Woody Marks. It's a great matchup. It's the Raiders. I thought Woody Marks was poised to be a league winner in the playoffs because he got, smash spot last week, smash spot this week. He gets another smash spot next week. But you don't even know how many snaps you're getting out of this guy on a week-to-week basis here. It's not all of them. He's going to leave at some point with an injury, but it is a good matchup. If he's playing and he's good to go, I'm going to say a strong flex. If he's out, I'll say Jordan, you can flex him. And even against the Raiders, I can't take a chance on a guy like Dare O, even if Marks is out.
No, look, as far as Jordan goes, I'm just going to lay it out there. He only has value if Marks is ruled out, and it really seems like that's not going to happen. Don't forget, Nick Chubb missed last week. Nick Chubb could come back this week and make all of this irrelevant. I don't think any of these guys can be more than a flex. So for this, particular matchup, it looks great, but can't trust any of them as more than just a floor play. So let's just say Marks is a flex and Jordan only if Marks happens to miss. This week, the Steelers going to take on the Lions in Detroit. Jahmyr Gibbs, whether you think he's going to score 3 touchdowns or no touchdowns, you start him, no questions asked. All right, let's talk about the Steelers' backfield, which continues to be as unpredictable as any. Is Jaylen Warren going to do something? Is Kenneth Gainwell going to randomly lead the team in rushing and receiving again? Or are both these guys just going to let us down?
Well, they could both let us down here. I'm just going to say both flexes on the road against the Lions. Like, the Lions have been terrible against the pass, but very good against the run. I think I probably prefer Kenneth Gainwell, though, because he's the guy who catches more passes, and I feel like this is going to be a game where the Steelers, unlike last week where they were actually winning, I think they're going to be losing in this game and throwing it a lot, so maybe that helps Gainwell.
This is a game where you figure, the Steelers will probably not be able to sit back and run the ball. They're going to pass. But for this offense with Aaron Rodgers, pass means dump the ball off, right? Check it down. Take Kenneth Gainwell. But that said, I cannot put him higher than a flex. I'll just say I think he's a high-end flex because of his work as a receiver. And Jaylen Warren is just a flex because maybe he scores. And then what about Monty this week? Home game against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't know how he keeps doing it. It's like 7 touches, 8 touches, but there's a touchdown. One of them's a touchdown somehow. Like, Gibbs killed you last week, and Monty still just kept scoring his touchdown. I don't know how he keeps doing it, but he does. It's not a tough matchup. They're at home. Flex him for that touchdown upside, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Despite not having Watt and that D-line having a ton of injuries, Dolphins did not exactly shred them through the running game or at all. So, Monty, you just can't feel great about him anyways. He's just a flex, and he's one of those guys you're just hoping for a score. On Sunday night, we're going to have the Patriots at the Ravens. Now we're talking a matchup between 2 high-end running backs, Derrick Henry and TreVeyon Henderson. Welcome to the club. Is he in the club? Can we trust him now or not so much?
Well, I think you got to find out. You got to find out. The guy has too much upside, I think, to bench. I will say it was interesting, diving into it more. I thought when I looked, I was going to see TreVeyon Henderson, just took over, just ran away with the backfield. And he did in terms of carries go, but he played less than half the snaps. And Ramondre, despite the fact that TreVeyon Henderson, his prospect profile, screamed pass-catching running back, he ran significantly less routes than Ramondre Stevenson, and Ramondre Stevenson caught 3 passes to his 1. I don't understand here. It's this is what this guy does. Why aren't we getting him more involved as a receiver, New England? But at least they're getting him more involved as a runner. He's got home run potential. He's got everything you're looking for in a running back. That week winning upside, you got to find out here. Strong start. I'll say Ramondre, just a risky flex because I do feel like he at least has a floor, because if he's going to catch 3 or 4 passes, he could get some, annoying 1-yard touchdown. Risky flex.
Yeah, well, with Henderson, I agree exactly what you said. You got to find out. You got to take a chance here because he showed exactly what you want to see from a running back on your fantasy squad. That home run hitting ability, that upside, that he can just take over a game and, help you win your matchup single-handedly. So he's got to be in the strong tier here. And as far as Mondre, I don't know. Sure, he could score a touchdown. He could get you a couple receptions. But to me, there's just no ceiling, not enough upside. I'd rather look for somebody who's just more interesting. Now, what about Derrick Henry? He has not demolished the Bengals defense in the 2 matchups he's faced, and that's the worst run defense out there, except for maybe the Giants. Now he gets the Patriots. Is there concern here?
Well, I don't know if there's concern. This is certainly not nearly as good of a spot. What's weird is you look at those two Bengals matchups. The guy only got 21 total carries in those games, but he averaged 6 yards per carry and 9 yards per carry in those games. And this last game, like, they were winning easily. Why wasn't Derrick Henry getting the ball more? Maybe they're just like, we don't need you. Take a seat, big fella. I don't know, but you just never know, right? It's weird, like, this year. You never know, like, how many, is he going to get 20 carries or is he going to get 10? You just really never know. But I will say the Pats, they're allowing 5 yards per carry over the last 4 games. This run defense hasn't been as good. James Cook just went for 107 yards and 2 touchdowns against them last week. I think you got to start Derrick Henry. Solid start.
He's got to at least be solid, not just because he's the king, but touchdown upside every single game. And you're right, this Pats defense has been exposed a little bit lately. Maybe a little overrated early on. The schedule definitely helped. They're still good, but they're not an elite run defense, and Derrick Henry won't have any problems against them. Then on Monday night, we get the Niners at the Colts. I mean, you'd think it'd be like, that's it, CMC, JT, you're done. Not so much. CMC, yeah, like absolute must start. Well, what about Jonathan Taylor now under the Phillip Rivers regime? He got a ton of carries. He got a decent amount of yards. Is there enough upside here? Are you concerned?
Well, you gotta be concerned. Like, it's just crazy that this guy for 13 weeks, it was like this guy is just going to lead everybody to a fantasy championship this year. And then week 14, week 15, he's just been okay, right? So I think that's the nice thing here is, like, he's going to at least be okay. Like, maybe the ceiling isn't what it was earlier in the year when he was scoring 3 touchdowns every week and, running for 150 yards. But come on, a guy that's going to get 20 plus carries, catch a handful of passes, still has a chance to score. I still got to say a strong start.
I'm going to say high-end solid. I mean, honestly, right now at this point, he's just a very, very high-end floor play. I mean, he's going to need another 25 carries, maybe more, to be productive, and he'll probably get it because it's pretty clear what the Colts were doing last week is just get the ball out of Rivers' hands as fast as possible, usually into JT's hands. So he'll definitely get the opportunities. I was a little shocked, honestly. Like, if I was the Seahawks, I would just put all 11 guys on the line of scrimmage. Kind of like when you play Madden, you do that goal line defense with just everybody just attack. Like, why did they just do that? You knew what was coming. I think the Niners are smart enough. They'll try to stop JT. So he'll get you a floor, could score, but can't feel a big game. All right, that's what you need to know for running back in Week 16. Of course, you need to get it right at every position, so make sure you check out our wide receiver starts it, quarterback, tight end, and everything else you need to take home your fantasy championship. It's right here.